Hi, welcome to the show. My guest today is a very special person who's been helping me do things in video and production for a really long time. I met him when I took all of my 8mm tapes to him and said, can you please put these on DVDs, if that tells you anything. So that's been a while ago. Now you just give me a zip drive, wouldn't you? So this is Malcolm Keithley. He's here to talk with us about just how the industry's changed, but also what you're doing now with Lake Chelan Magazine. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me, Lisa.
We've spent many hours in front of a computer editing together, but we've never done an interview. You've edited a lot of my interviews over the years.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm usually behind the camera when we meet.
Right. So thanks for being here. I wanted to talk a bit about, you've been doing this a long time, making videos and productions and digital books and all these things. You've kind of ridden the wave of technology.
Pretty much. I was thinking the other day that I believe I was the first to start a commercial video production company in the Valley. And so that goes back a few years.
How far back, you think?
It was the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then but back then, what was some of the gear you used back then?
Oh, it was awful clunky gear, heavy cameras, and the cameras were not self-contained with the recorders, and so you had a separate recorder. And so you were carrying around all this heavy, bulky material. And again, in thinking back in retrospect, we were always looking to provide good quality for our clients and for our productions, and that was very difficult to attain. It was very expensive to get into the business in the first place. The cameras were expensive, and they weren't necessarily the best quality, even though you were spending thousands of dollars for them.
Right, so now you could, and it's been done, film an entire project on an iPhone or any other kind of camera phone.
Yes.
And
yes.
back then, what would a camera cost? So just to want to get started in the industry, thousands of dollars. $10,000? What do you think?
35.
35 for one camera, or for the gear you'd need to do a...
Just to get started, to be able to barely do a production, you needed to spend, that's what I spent. I remember $35,000, and that was just bare minimum to begin.
And that was a risk, right? Because then you got to convince people that these stories are worth telling, and let's put it on. Let's put it in a media form, right? So you've been carving it out for a long time.
Well, let me put it into perspective. The only way you could deliver a program back then was on a VHS. Not the only way, but the primary way would be able to deliver a program on VHS tape. And so then you had the problem of getting that tape into not only the client's hands, but their customers' hands, or whoever they wanted to get it to. And so often we would produce a program, and it would really go nowhere to a very limited audience.
Because unless you handed them
this
VHS tape, there was no way for them to see it.
Exactly.
So then, what was the transition for you? So you started out making, what are the type of productions did you make back then?
Well, we started doing what was known then, and probably still known today, as industrials. They were promotional or educational type programs. And not long after I started the business, there was a relicensing program going on for hydroelectric dams all across the country. And so I kind of fell into a situation where we started going around the country, not the country entirely, but from Alaska to California.
Your side of the country.
Yes, our side of the country, doing relicensing videos for hydroelectric projects. And so that kept us busy for a number of years. And then we started working for the Forest Service and other government agencies. And then, of course, doing the industrial programs for promotional programs or educational programs, which I liked the best was educational programs.
That was the thing that you enjoyed doing the most.
Enjoyed that the most.
So then, you spent much of that time behind the camera. So you were telling other people's stories.
Well, I spent time behind the camera, but also I enjoyed the editing process.
That's where the story is, a lot of it.
Exactly.
What I've learned over the last few years, especially after doing the Don't Wait Project tour last spring, that you know, I have all this footage. I've interviewed people for, you know, half an hour, or I've spent 2 hours with them in their environment, whatever that is.
Right.
B-roll, that's all the footage you see that helps tell the story aside from us sitting here. And what I discovered over time is that I know kind of the story I want to tell because I've asked the questions or I've shared that part of, they've shared that part of themselves with me, whoever that is. And then you sit down and you're like, it's like a blank canvas. And you got 8 minutes times 3, if I'm airing it on this show, to tell the story. And it really starts to, it's a process that's a lot of work, but also a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's very engaging. I really enjoy the change in technology now. It's made a huge difference in how you work. And before we were working all tape-based, and that was problematic in itself. And to do a B-roll or to do a dissolve from one image to another, one video to another was, that took a lot more equipment. And now the students that I see coming out, they have at their hands the ability to have great imagery. The whole thing can just be superb in its quality and its look. And I don't think they really understand how lucky they are to be able to tell a story with such a great potential.
I love video montages, like putting pictures to video. Like I gave those gifts to my family. I did my first one, I believe, in about 1997. And so what I did is I picked out the pictures that were printed in albums, pulled them out of albums, pulled them out of drawers, whatever. They're actual printed pictures. And I set up lighting in my dining room and leaned it against a book just so, and click the button. That was before the cameras had a remote control, so I had to be careful not to push the button too hard where it'd move the picture, move, you know, the frame. And I'd push the button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'd stop.
Right.
And I did that, and then I had to, so then there was that, and then for my captions, I would type it out on a piece of paper, make it look how I wanted, take a picture of that, and then took it to, put it all together in that video, because it's timed, so if I made a mistake, I'd rewind, find exactly where it went. And then I took it to a guy, I lived in Houston then, took it to a guy downtown, 45 minutes from where I lived in the suburbs, and he charged me like $110 to put music to it. I mean, it's just, and all that was timed and knew exactly how many seconds I had. And then this player came about online where you could just load your pictures in and then pick a song, and that just changed my whole life. And now, you know, you can do it on iMovie or any kind of pretty easy to use programming on your computer.
There's so many applications now that do such a superb job.
So, and that's the only comparison I have to what you're explaining, is just that process of pushing that button. And as it went on in the years, I found easier ways to do it and still gave them as gifts, but then you're handing them a disc or you're handing them a zip drive or whatever.
Well, what changed the video world was the introduction of what was known as the video toaster and the Amiga computer.
I never heard of it.
That happened in the early 90s. And I think we spent about $10,000 in the first Amiga computer. And that allowed us to do desktop editing with a switcher that was built into a computer. And that was kind of the beginning. That was a revolution for video production for anybody but the big studios, anybody that was willing to spend lots of money in their setup.
Well, let's take a break. We're talking with Malcolm Keithley. He is an old friend of mine who's helped me with many different video productions and things that I've worked on over the years, taught me a lot of what I know. He knows so much more than I can imagine knowing. He's also the founder of a magazine called Lake Chelan Magazine. We're going to get to that in a little bit. We'll be back in just a moment.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
Dear Mary Maids, just got home from a trade show and I didn't have time to pick up the house. Kids made chili. Jeff did a mud run. Oh, and Winston shredded Teddy's bed. Again, please clean it the best you can. Oh, except for the statue Max made for me. Thanks, Abby.
Hi, Abby. Clean kitchen, clean bath, clean floor, naughty cat, poor Teddy. The statue is precious. You should keep it forever. See you next time, Mary Maids.
Hi, we're back. Thanks for joining me on the show today. I'm talking with my friend and colleague, I'll say, Malcolm Keithley. He is the owner of M&M Productions, and he is the founder of Lake Chelan Magazine, a digital magazine we'll be talking about in just a moment. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
So we spent the first segment talking about how far video production has come. And I know that when I've visited with you over the years, you know, I come to you with I need help with something or advice about something, you'll show me things you're working on. And I know that digital books and digital ways of sharing stories is a big thing for you.
It is. That's probably my favorite area of media production, is the interactive type publication, where you have not only words, but you could have video, audio, and all kinds of other interactivity, including links to other websites and that type of thing. And of course, Apple eBooks is a prime example of interactive books. And so I have published some interactive books with Apple eBooks and other publishers. There's, of course, Amazon and Kobo are the leading publishers. The last book I published was Saving Cinder the Bear with Barbara D. Robertis. And Barbara D. Robertis, excuse me, as most people around here will know, is a leading children's author that lives in Kashmir. And she's published, I can't remember how many books, but she sold, last count, millions. And her publisher...
Right here in our own little nook, huh?
Yes. She's an excellent children's and well-known, and has many awards for her books. And so Saving Cinder the Bear was about the little bear that was burned badly up in the Carlton fire. It tells the true story about that little bear cub. And
so is it animated? Is it pictures, or is it words with actual real pictures? Or
it has both, and it has a video in it. From all the news organizations that covered Cinder, CBS and all the others.
So it's the whole story.
The whole story. Mm-hmm.
And that says something about her selecting you to partner on this project, so that's a kudos to you.
It was great. It was a great partnership. I really enjoyed that, and the book is doing pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. I think that the more ways, I'm a huge believer in storytelling. I think it's how I earn a living, telling stories in different forms, and to have the ability to do that, like you're talking about kids today, they have their phones or whatever. I remember my son used to make kendama videos every day. He never sat down. He was just constantly filming, and then he'd get different shots, and that's what got him so interested in.
Yes.
Into that industry, and it's more of a hobby now for him. It's not anything he's pursuing in college, but he thought about it, and I don't think that had he not had the opportunity to use gadgets so easily, that I don't even know that would have ever been of interest to him.
Yeah, it's amazing what's available to young kids or anyone. They can do marvelous things with what's available now, and it for little or no cost in many cases.
So now, when we're talking about digital media, we're going to get to the magazine that you created, Lake Chelan Magazine. You're a founder of that magazine, and I've seen it. It's absolutely beautiful, and we'll show you a couple of clips of it here because it is digital. How are you exclusively in kind of print digital media, not print, but digital media, as opposed to video production anymore, or motion production? What do you call it? Is it's still video production even though it's not on a video?
Well, I call it just media production. I'm still looking for a good way to describe it, but it's the incorporation of all kinds of media. You're not limited at all to what you use that way. And the other great thing I like about it is that it's, unlike print, you can change it. and change it instantaneously. I just made some changes this morning. I found a couple of modifications I wanted to make in this issue, and just took a couple of minutes, push the publish button, and that's anytime someone looks at the magazine now, they'll see that correction or that change.
They won't see that you changed it. It'll just be changed.
It'll just be changed.
That's the same with website and that kind of content.
Correct.
And I edit magazines, 3 magazines in Colorado, and I read it, edit it, read it, edit it, read it. By then I've looked at it, 12 times. And it isn't until I see it on the screen that I see a proof. They send me a digital proof, and then I usually have a few edits again. And they actually distribute it as a printed magazine, but I don't ever really look at that part. I just kind of go through that part of my job. And it's amazing how no matter how many times you've looked at something, until you see it on the screen, then you're like, dang it.
It's amazing.
And then
we run
but
it,
you can fix it now.
Well, we run it through electronic programs for editorial, and then I have human editors that look at it too, and we always find there's something to correct.
I'll find that even if I'm making a simple post on social media or something. I thought I read it pretty well. I didn't have wine when I wrote it, and then I read it later and I'm like, how did I get that wrong?
Well, I thought I knew when I was supposed to be here today.
That's okay. We weren't even going to bring that up. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about Lake Chelan Magazine, the digital magazine that you founded. Like I said, it's a beautiful magazine. We'll put up some pictures and show you it from a digital point of view when we get back. We're talking with Malcolm Keithley. He's the owner of M&M Productions and a good friend of mine who's been helping me with media for a long time.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
So Pam, how's your mom doing?
She's okay. She's struggling. She'd like to stay in her house, and it's getting harder for her to do the daily chores.
What kinds of problems is she having?
Just basic house cleaning, taking care of her house, yard work, taking care of her medicine.
It does sound exhausting.
It is very exhausting, and I always worry about her.
Aging and Adult Care can assist you or your loved one to remain comfortably and safely in their own home. Contact them today to start the conversation.
Hi, we're back. Thanks for watching Life with Lisa Bradshaw. I'm here talking with Malcolm Keithley. He is the owner of M&M Productions and a good friend of mine. He's been in media for 30 plus years, you said? Is it longer than that?
I'm still counting.
For a while now. He's seen the trends that have happened since the beginning to now. One of the things you're always telling me is that you can film with anything. Like you've an iPad, a phone, whatever, and there's all these, now there's gadgets to hook up to it, and I mean, can you believe that?
It's hard to believe.
Compared to the camera used to clunk around,
Right. I used to carry with me a pickup load of gear, and now I can carry it all in a small case. That does more than what I could do with the pickup load of gear.
Right, and I mean that's another question then. Thanks for bringing that up. What is the difference in what you can do now compared to then, aside from what you have to carry around? If there's one thing you could take with you, what would it be?
If there was one thing I could take with me at the present time, I would say it'd probably have to be an iPhone. Because you can do so much with just that. I have a number of new camera pieces that I use, and one is called an Osmo.
I use
You use
that.
an Osmo, and that gives you all stabilization that we used to.
It's on a gimbal?
On a gimbal.
Yes.
And we used to have to have a crew to do what we can do with the Osmo. And then there's a Theta that I do 360s with, video and photographs. And then I got a new camera just the other day called the Matterport that does 3D tours. So you can go in and actually go through a building or location in 3D. And so we're offering that for the magazine.
It's really cool too to talk about, what if you could only take a couple of things with you, what would you take and what does that achieve? Because when you think about it from the bigger picture of, I want to tell this story, and this is what I have at my hands, and so some of what you use makes it easier in post as well, post-production.
Oh, absolutely.
How you go about that?
Well, everything is digital now. You just move it. It's ready immediately for use for editorial. And before, we would have to begin by capturing the tape into the computer, or prior
and
to
it
computers.
loses a generation when you do
Right,
that.
exactly. And now we're pristine all the way through.
Well, let's talk about Lake Chelan Magazine. That's what I wanted to have you here to talk about today. So you talked about how you like the digital media. You like ebooks and those sort of things. So what gave you the idea for the magazine? You're a founder of the magazine. It's a beautiful magazine.
Well, thank
we'll
you.
show you some of the clips as we're talking here. We'll just mix them in. But tell me how that got started.
Well, I've always I've always loved Lake Chelan, and so it's kind of a
Who doesn't, right?
Yeah, right. And it's kind of a publication where some friends and I got together, and we realized that we had an awful lot of material about Lake Chelan, a lot of stories that we've been collecting. I probably have the largest high-definition library of the North Cascades in existence, for instance. And we wanted a showcase for our stories and for our material. I'm working with Rich Uhlhorn, who's a journalist and a photographer in Lake Chelan, long time. Billy Sullivan, who did all the hard hiking in the Cascades to get the material for us.
You sent somebody up for that.
And Timothy Oldfield, who is our 360-degree panoramic expert. And we're wanting it to be also a vehicle for other artists that can showcase what they can do and show their love for Lake Chelan too. It's not a tourism-oriented publication at all.
Some of it's historical.
Some of it's historical. It's all about anything that's connected to Lake Chelan. We ran a feature in this new fall issue about Christy Nielsen and her photography of wild birds. And her photography is just fantastic. You would never know she was an amateur.
So if someone wanted to submit and be part of the magazine, they could do that?
Sure.
They could do that?
Just contact us.
How do they contact you?
Go to LakeChelanMagazine.com.
That's easy.
It's easy.
So it's just digital, not just, but it's not in print, it's digital.
And we have no plans to go to print at all.
I think that there's something about, yes, for sure, holding a magazine or holding a book in your hands.
Sure.
But I think with my third book, I don't even know if I'll, I think if I did it, I'd do like a print on demand or something instead of, and of course a digital form and Audible. I mean, I get a lot of people who ask me if my second book, Big Shoes, is Audible, and it's not.
I would advise that as a good way to go.
I know.
I really would.
And it used to be like, I thought, I should have done that when I had access to the radio station and could have recorded in there, and really you can record it so easily now. You could do an Audible. You could read anybody's book and be Audible.
Yes.
So tell me then, the magazine, if people want to submit, they reach out to your website, and it's LakeChelanMagazine.com. And tell us about some of the pictures that we're looking at here.
You'll be seeing some of the front pages of each article. And we have a number of articles, obviously, in each issue. We've only have 2 issues so far. We're working now on the winter issue. And you'll see all kinds of different articles from historical material. And we have an article in this issue by Rich Uhlhorn about how wine industry is driving the economy in Lake Chelan. And we have a notice about a historical book that we're producing about what I call the cowboy photographer of Lake Chelan, Lawrence D. Lindsley, who was active in Lake Chelan in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And he has some of the most iconic images of Lake Chelan that are available today. And so I'm working on a book a digital book, obviously, on Lawrence Lindsley, the cowboy photographer of Lake Chelan.
It's nice that you say you're working on the winter issue because it's digital, so you can put it up on December 15th or December 30th or January 15th, and it's still your winter issue because you don't have to worry about the process of going to print and
shipping it out
distributing
and
them
that type
out.
of
And
thing.
so,
Right.
well, I think it's genius, and I'm so glad you're doing what you love and you've figured out a way to. I think that people can do anything they want in this community. I think you can build any career you want, and you've clearly done that for yourself.
Well, thank you.
So if you want to check out the magazine, it's LakeChelanMagazine.com. If you're a writer, a photographer, or any of those things that we were discussing and you want to share a part of Lake Chelan with the audience, reach out to them. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.